Good afternoon and welcome to the June 10th Governance and Priorities Committee meeting. I'd like to recognize that we're on the traditional territory of the Sinanimo First Nations. Our clerk this afternoon is Michelle McGurry. If during the meeting any member of the gallery has a question regarding an agenda item, please write down your name and the agenda item on the sheet. At the start of the question period, I'll call those who have signed up to the podium to address council. So, introduction of late items, Ms. Gurry.
Thank you, Chair. For late items today, for agenda item 5B1, results of the e-town hall, we're just updating the first summary point to show 45 questions submitted for the e-town hall instead of 25. And I'd also just like to let the committee know that this is the first day for our closed captioning. So if we could make sure we speak really loud, because the accuracy of the closed captioning will depend on how well it can hear and then translate. So just another reminder to speak up in this room.
Okay, thank you for that. So the minutes were circulated. I'd be looking for an adoption. So moved, Councillor Brown, seconded Councillor Fort. Any discussion? Call question? Reports. Mr. Harding.
Chair?
Yes.
We just need to, for procedural, we just need to adopt the agenda.
Oh, the agenda. Thank you.
So moved.
Thank you, Councillor Thorpe. Seconded by Councillor Bonner. Any discussion? All those in favor? Great. Mr. Harding.
Thank you, Chair Emmons. In a few moments, I'll introduce our speakers today. Just a bit of a reminder for council is we awarded a 5-year contract to Tourism in Vancouver Island, Tourism in Nanaimo, for 5-year delivery of services. One part of that proposal is that they come and do an update to council twice a year, at least twice a year. So this is the update, and I'll call Karen up in right now, actually, Karen Bannister. Also, Anthony is also here. And we'll do the presentation, and if any questions after to staff or to the contractor, please send it. So I'll call Karen. Your mic up, so you want to hold it?
I'm okay. I'm going to want to put my papers down, and
Okay.
that's okay.
Let's go up the side here a little bit.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Okay, good afternoon. I am grateful to be here today on the traditional territory of the Sinanimo First Nation to speak to you about tourism in Nanaimo. My name is Karen Bannister, and I'm the Executive Director of Tourism Nanaimo, as well as the Director of Destination Marketing for Tourism Vancouver Island. We are the entity that the City of Nanaimo, as Richard said, has been contracted to develop and deliver tourism services on behalf of the City of Nanaimo. I'd also like to introduce our CEO and President of Tourism Vancouver Island, Anthony Everett, out there in the back, and get my slides going. Tourism Vancouver Island was first engaged to deliver destination management services on behalf of the City of Nanaimo in February of 2017. What followed was 2 one-year contracts and now a 5-year contract, as Richard mentioned, that began April 1st of 2019. Since the beginning of our contract, our team has been interested in the power of telling local stories, showcasing local recommendations, and cultivating the unique identity of Nanaimo through local storytelling. We have created a series of 3 videos with locals sharing their favorite things to do, and we are currently putting the finishing touches on a website page that will feature frequently asked visitor questions with the locals that we've interviewed answering those questions and providing their favorite things to do. One of those features is then MLA, now Mayor Leonard Krogh. Stay tuned for his debut on the website. At the end of this presentation, I will ask something of you, and that is to join us in building the identity of Nanaimo upon community collaboration and fierce civic pride. Tourism Vancouver Island is one of 5 regional destination marketing organizations contracted by Destination British Columbia to represent the interests of tourism businesses on Vancouver Island. Through our mandate to unify, amplify, and collaborate, we work to build strong and successful tourism businesses and infrastructure so that we may share our pride of home with the world. We are here because we want to be here. As part of this mandate, we take on service contracts, including this one with the City of Nanaimo. This contract includes delivery of destination marketing, development, and visitor services. We initiate marketing campaigns, work to support tourism businesses through professional development and funding, and run the visitor centers both at the Bastion location downtown seasonally and on Northfield year-round. We provide roaming visitor servicing through our ambassador program, which recently was celebrated on the provincial stage as a model for the future of visitor counseling. We now have more than 90 resident volunteers who provide their time in providing visitor counseling at events, cruise ship ports of call, and conferences. How do we measure our performance? In the marketing world, we measure performance based on engagements and impressions. Conversions are very important to us, and this involves the movement along the path to purchase. We measure a conversion as a click to a stakeholder website from our website, because our hope is that the visitor is leaving our site to go and make their booking with the stakeholder. We also look at hotel occupancy. Transportation, because we are an island, we are a transportation hub, we're looking at transportation numbers. The number of visitors counseled at our visitor centers, both roaming and static, but keeping in mind that only about 3% of visitors actually access these services. And research, including visitor experience surveys, marketing campaign effectiveness surveys, something called social sentiment listening, where we look at what people are saying about us on social media, and movement on the island. I'd like to share some of our important successes with you that we've achieved since the beginning of our contracts with the City of Nanaimo, the start of February of 2017. We migrated 3 consumer-facing websites over to one website and launched this in the August of 2017. It won an award for design and has since allowed us to grow conversions to stakeholder websites to over 30,000 in 1 year. We grew an image database of brand-aligned images, that's brand-aligned with the Destination British Columbia brand, also available for third-party use. That means that any business within the City of Nanaimo who is in the tourism space or media can utilize our images. And we grew that from essentially 0 to over 130. We formed a marketing partnership with Gabriola Island and Sinimuk First Nation. Together with the Nanaimo Hospitality Association, we formed the Tourism Partners Roundtable, which meets monthly with around 20 representatives from some of the largest tourism and tourism supportive organizations in Nanaimo, including the Vancouver Island Conference Centre and the Nanaimo Port Authority. Our mountain biking marketing campaign with the Nanaimo Hospitality Association was a finalist for a BC Tourism Award in the category of Innovative Marketing Campaign. The video that we produced for that campaign went viral on YouTube and has now received over 319,000 views. We moved largely towards a digital strategy, which allows us to be more cost-effective. We want to be able to spend less dollars and yield more results. That is why you notice a drop in impressions over last year, but our engagements have increased quite significantly, which is much more valuable to us. We've run 9 stakeholder engagement sessions and provided 3 subsidized professional development opportunities for our stakeholders, including a digital readiness program, which we've launched this year, which provides a service to our businesses at a highly subsidized rate to increase their online presence. We've grown our database of CASL compliance stakeholder contracts from 497 at our start to 876 now. And our visitor numbers have grown substantially due to implementing our roaming visitor counseling. We are on a great path, but striving to the top, and so I wanted to highlight a few of our key challenges. We need community pride of place. We need resident ambassadors. We know that from recent surveys, about 54% of visitors come to Nanaimo based on the recommendation of family and friends. Our residents are our biggest advocates and can be our biggest detractors. We need to build that community pride of place. We have high brand awareness because we are a transportation hub, but we need to convert that awareness to visits through a better education of what's available in Nanaimo. And we have come a long way in our unification as an industry within Nanaimo, and we need that unification process to continue so that we can all organizations work together to push into the off-season, which is where we have our greatest need. And we need to get ahead of the technology curve and innovate on visitor servicing. So to address these challenges, we are currently building out a 5-year strategic plan for tourism that includes a focus on bi-directional conversations with consumers that is utilizing data to get as much information on potential visitors as we can so that we can deliver that right message at the right time. We utilize a software program, the intelligence from digital marketing, as well as research to do so. We are striving towards exceptional customer care. That's the vision that when you as a visitor come to Nanaimo, at every single touch point, you are greeted with this superior and exceptional touches of customer care. And to achieve that, we're working on frontline staff training, increasing our roaming visitor counseling, and of course, as I mentioned, building resident pride. Building of resident and community pride is another one of our pillars, and that comes from education about the value of tourism, corporate communications strategies, community collaborations, and a passport program that allows residents to get more knowledgeable by experiencing tourism product in their own town. We want to build remarkable experiences. That's the idea of investing in discovering what makes Nanaimo exceptional and helping tourism operators, attracting tourism operators to our city to be able to develop those exceptional experiences. And collaboration, a collaborative approach within industry that includes the identification of our top shared priorities and then movement towards that. We have already made great strides in our collaboration. As I mentioned, our mountain biking campaign with the Hospitality Association has moved into year 2. This campaign includes a video contest with the filmmakers IFHT. I'm not able to show you the video, but I can send the link out afterwards. It's called their Sick at It Challenge, and it invites people to take footage that they already have through IFHT or to come to our trails and shoot their own footage, create a video, and then they're entered to win the opportunity to ride with IFHT here in Nanaimo. They have a huge international platform, so it's an opportunity to put us on the world stage for one of our greatest assets. We've partnered and worked very closely with Vancouver Island University. Tourism Vancouver Island is engaged with the Department of Recreation and Tourism towards a learning partnership. We are in the beginning phases of developing 2 important learning opportunities that will involve Tourism Nanaimo staff as well as Tourism Nanaimo stakeholders, and that is a Careers in Tourism Symposium as well as a mentorship program for students of the Recreation and Tourism program. Tourism Vancouver Island recently accepted an award at the Department of Recreation and Tourism's wrap-up event for the year for our support of student learning. We are also having the Tourism Vancouver Island Conference here in Nanaimo this year, and as part of that, Tourism Nanaimo has engaged a welcome committee to plan a reception at the conference, which we are hoping to host at Vancouver Island University. The conference's theme is Relearn the Stories of the Land, here also translated into Halkominum. For the last several months of Tourism Nanaimo, we've been working closely with the Nanaimo Port Authority to develop a cruise strategy that will maximize use of an economic benefit for the port facility here in Nanaimo. We've met with Cruise Line International Association to learn more about the industry and to begin to discover what our best positioning within that marketplace might be. And we are in year 2 of our partnership with Shinimuk First Nation. We are working together to promote Seisachin. We have provided funding towards training and infrastructure for their newly reopened Seisachin Bistro. And we are in the process of creating a Seisachin section for tourismnanaimo.com, which includes already an essay written by Elliot Whitehill and will include interactive elements to tell the story of Seisachin so that people may go to the island and engage in self-guided tours. Key takeaways. The tourism economy in British Columbia is growing. In 2017, it actually surpassed natural resources as the greatest contributor to the province's GDP. That's huge. As other island destinations grow in popularity, Nanaimo will benefit from the impact of dispersion. So we have a great opportunity. Our competitive advantage will be in the telling of our local stories and building up of civic pride, and in our collaborative working model, which we are strengthening every day. And we can continue this collaborative model by addressing our priorities together. As I mentioned, resident pride is a cornerstone of our success, and we are focused on off-season for support. So I said that there would be an ask of you in closing. We are all in this together. You and every resident and tourism industry operator can get out there, explore, talk about what we have to offer, recognize our city as beautiful, full of opportunity, and be an ambassador for your city so that we help build up good news stories, share the value of tourism, tell others why they should come, and help us be a welcoming city for visitors. And then engage with us in tackling tough issues around infrastructure development, resident pride, perceptions of safety, developing more and more collaborative models and processes, and of course, celebrating our successes. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Bannister.
Thank you.
Councillor Armstrong has a question.
Well, thank you. Just building on what you just said about perception of safety, is all the negative publicity we're getting an impact on that? Like I'm on different websites and Facebook where people say don't go to Nanaimo, we had our stuff stolen. Visitors are, my brother-in-law was staying at the Ramada, they told him to move his boat because it wasn't safe to stay there. They're telling all the visitors to move. So is that having an impact?
It doesn't. It actually, interestingly for me, I learned that the impact is not from the visitor's perception. So for example, when we had the cruise ship in and the tent city was up, or discontent city, the feedback from the cruise ship passengers was, oh, well, this is pretty normal for us. We see this in our own cities. This is not actually anything different. Where we have been impacted and where I wanted to hit on the resident pride piece over and over again is in the residents themselves taking to social media to say, oh, don't come to Nanaimo because of this, because we have a tent city, because we do have drug addicts in the downtown core. And that's not helpful, just because the visitor might not even be receptive or interested or even tuning into that before that resident brings that up. So that's the unfortunate part of it, I think.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Thorpe?
Thank you, Chair. Through you to Ms. Bannister, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I recall 3 years ago when we had the last BC Summer Games here in town, talking to a lot of visitors who told me they'd never been to Nanaimo before. They were just overwhelmed with the beauty of this area and impressed with our facilities, and they were going to be back and they were going to spread the word. So I think we've got a lot going for us, as I'm sure we all know. My question is regarding feedback.
Yes.
I'm sure it's difficult to get feedback from tourists, but what you do receive, are you able to identify general themes of what brings people here? What do they like? What do they not like? If there's any data around those types of questions, I'd be really interested in an answer. If not now, then at a future date.
Yeah, I can give you an idea now and then point you to a direction for future. For the last 5 years, we've done a visitor experience survey, and all of that data is up on our website through the industry portal. The visitor experience survey is good from the perspective of being able to actually talk to visitors while they're in market and find out what their experience has been and why they have come and where they're coming from. It's limited in the sense that it's self-reported. It's also opt-in, so you only get the people who are interested in engaging with us. And it's also through a contest, and so you also get those people who want to enter into the contest. What we've found out, though, is that we do get, our demographic is very similar to the Vancouver Island demographic, so we are able to tap into research that Tourism Vancouver Island has done, as well as Destination BC. And so we do know that what people are coming to the island for is those outdoor experiences, the fact that we are an island, the ocean experiences. And we also know from, again, the residents or the visitor experience survey that 54% of those people are coming on that recommendation from family and friend, and that word of mouth marketing is actually the most powerful engine. So whether you were a visitor and you couldn't stop talking about your experience, or you live here and need to tell all of your family and friends about it, that will be a key driver.
Thank you.
Mayor Crowe?
Thank you very much, and thank you for the presentation. I appreciate, statistics are all those things you can twist and play with, but just looking at the basic statistic around occupancy, hotel occupancy, 2017 versus 18, up 1.45%. In comparison to the province as a whole or cities of community size, can you offer any comment on that?
Yeah, actually, I recently looked at the statistics across the cities in British Columbia, and we are actually moving in the same direction. And I think, and Anthony might want to jump in here if he'd like, but that speaks to the dispersion, I think, as well, where when Victoria is up, Nanaimo is up as well. Same with Vancouver. When Vancouver is up, Victoria is up, and likewise. So we are seeing the same growth patterns.
Sure. Or at least mics, I understand. I would just say that, yes, we've had astronomical growth in the tourism industry in British Columbia for a long time. What I'm worried about is when we don't have that anymore. So that's one thing. Compression and dispersion is a fancy way of saying Victoria has too many people, so let's move them elsewhere. And so that's something we're actively working on. There's a lot of room to grow here in the shoulder season. And where we're really focused as Tourism Vancouver Island with Karen is responsible travel. So the people that are coming here, that they're responsible when they're coming here. It's less about, I guess what I'm getting at, it's not about growth all the time. It's now, we don't want to be Venice, we don't want to be Barcelona, we don't want to be these other places, so let's have that conversation now before we get to that point.
Thank you. Councillor Shirley.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. So I've been involved in lacrosse for years, and every year we have what's called the Tim White Tournament, which is a tournament for 13, 14-year-old boys, and it was held, I'm going to say the third weekend in May, I can't remember the exact date, but we had teams, I think there were 13 out-of-town teams plus 3 local, and they were as close as Parksville and as far away as Kelowna, the teams that came here. And for the most part, everybody thought it was fantastic. One team had an issue with a certain hotel, which I can talk to you later.
Sure.
And they had booked the hotel and weren't told anything about rules and regulations ahead of time.
Okay.
When they got there, they were told, can't do this, can't do that, can't do this, can't do that. And they were a little upset. However, I think their concern was justified because they were one of 2 teams that actually came to me because I was head referee and praised the officials on the floor. So they're not a group of negative people. Like, no, we had people that complained about the referees, but that's another topic. But these ones are actually praising them. So
Okay.
I don't know whether there's some avenue for myself or the Lacrosse Association here to go to you to see that, had they been made aware of this prior to booking, it wouldn't be an issue, but when they showed up, that's when they were told.
Yeah, I mean, all we can do is pass the information along just like the consumer can to the hotel itself and to the Hospitality Association if they choose to take the thread up on that. But private business, we can only do what we can do. We don't have a membership or a stamp of approval process. Neither does Tourism Vancouver Island or Destination BC. It really is, up to the consumer to go to the hotel. If they're having a challenge there, we have had instances, not actually in Nanaimo, but in other parts of the island where people have called us, and really Better Business Bureau is honestly the best avenue to go. Yeah. We do try, and that's why the frontline training program is part of it for us, is we are trying to sort of help our hoteliers to get up to that exceptional level of service, so that does not fit into my model of that exceptional service.
Thank you. Councillor Gasapov.
Through the chair to Ms. Bannister or Mr. Everett, I was just curious to hear a little bit more about what is meant by responsible traveler or responsible travel.
Sure. Can I start? I'll start, and then I'll start by talking about the Surf Rider campaign, and then you can jump in on the broader, because I'm actually I'm really excited to share this. So Tourism Vancouver Island is engaged with a group that's heavily involved in the West Coast on called Surf Rider, and so that is about educating travelers about plastics use, oceans, clean, coming into a space and being respectful of the environment. And so Nanaimo does have an opportunity to buy into a content marketing campaign that Tourism Vancouver Island will be running around educating travelers on mindful practices, coming into a space, not using plastics, not throwing things onto the beach, that kind of thing. It's also one of the tenets of Tourism Vancouver Island's overall strategy, so I'll let Anthony speak to that part.
Sure, I'm supposed to talk into this.
Okay.
So I guess to add to that, Surf Rider, as an example, we're exploring opportunities to collaborate with groups like the Sierra Club. So these are conversations that in my long history in tourism we would never have gotten involved in before. So it's looking at talking to our travelers that are coming here about what we expect, the interface between residents and the travelers and what is going on in that dynamic. And that's why I referenced Barcelona. I mean, just do a 2-second search, you can see what's going on in some of those destinations. And so that's something I think is very critical right now in places like Tofino or Victoria, James Bay and Victoria with cruise ships, right? So getting involved in those conversations about what is responsible. So some of the video that we're already producing is if you use our trails, these are the things you need to think about when you travel here, so that we don't have those situations where travelers are on top of Grouse Mountain needing to be airlifted off because they're wearing flip-flops, that kind of thing. So that's some of what we're getting involved in terms of consumer-facing messages, which is not different than just come here, come here, come here. It's come here, but come here responsibly. Does that answer?
Yeah, I may follow up on that. It's really heartening to hear, and I think that in terms of a branding strategy as well, Vancouver Island has a certain vibe, and I think if we can be seen as, a progressive place to come and be and take leadership on plastics and that, and also just in this regional district, we've set a 90% diversion target for waste, and there's a bylaw that hopefully will be coming into place with approval from the province that all commercial enterprises will need to separate their materials for recyclables. And I can see with an influx and more tourism, there is going to be need to, one, educate folks coming in and also support the businesses to make sure that they have the services available to be able to accomplish that. And so it's wonderful to hear that you folks are already on top of that, and I look forward to seeing collaboration with the different groups involved to make it a reality, because I think people do want to come to a green place, and I think it's not only good for the environment, but awesome marketing as well, so right on. Thank you.
And the frontline training that we're working on is something that's not out of the box, but we're hoping to actually make something that's unique to us, and that would allow us to include components of sustainability. So talking to the hotel's frontline staff and their GMs about how can you bring sustainability practices into your business, and what part do you play in educating the consumer when they come to you.
That really speaks to that money in Silicon Valley and San Francisco, so
Yeah.
it's good.
Thank you. Councillor Bonner.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you very much for your presentation. My question is on cruise ships, conferences, and sports tourism. Can you describe what work you're doing to attract cruise ships and conferences to town, if you are? And in terms of sports tourism, is there any sort of infrastructure that you would like to see in our city that might help you along attracting more sports tourism to our town?
Okay, I'll start with cruise. So as I mentioned in the presentation, we've been working with the Nanaimo Port Authority over the last probably about 6 months on developing a cruise strategy. About 3-4 months ago, we went to Vancouver to meet with the Cruise Line International Association executive director to pick her brain a little bit about what the best strategy for Nanaimo might be. And we have been engaged with the Port Authority in helping them to sort of also have conversations with us around how we can better support them when they're out trying to sell the port. And so that piece is in process. In fact, we're probably only about a week away from sort of finalizing what those details look like. And then once we identify our best market, because it's not necessarily to speak to the sustainability piece about those giant cruise ships that are bringing in 3,000 people. Some of the smaller cruise lines that we're actually seeing this year have potentially more opportunity for us because they're higher yield consumers. It costs more to get on that boat. So you're looking at more of a higher demographic that might get off the boat and be interested in spending more money on some pretty remarkable experiences. With respect to conferences, we work with Vancouver Island Conference Centre as well as the Hospitality Association to support sales strategies and event support when conferences come to town so that we can create unique opportunities pre, post, and during for spousal programs that get people outside of the conference walls, but also moving around our city to try different things, which again also leads to repeat visits. Sport tourism was an initiative of the Hospitality Association this past year. The sport tourism strategy exists, and that next step I would defer to Mr. Richard Harding.
Do you want to take a stab at that?
That's right. So actually with the Hotel Association and the city and actually tourism, and I'm also assisting, there's a draft sports tourism strategy. We're hoping to actually bring it today as part of kind of package a number of things with GPC, but it's not quite ready. So I hope maybe next month's GPC will bring that forward with NHA and the consultants on the sports tourism strategy. and lots of great facilities to
Thank you. Councillor Brown?
Yes, thank you, Sharon. Thank you for the presentation and the work that you're doing. In your presentation, you touched on a few times about resident pride of place as not a barrier, but something that obviously needs to be addressed. Do you have any preliminary thoughts about how to change our internal perception of Nanaimo and how to build that pride of place?
Yeah, so there is also another video that I can circulate. There's actually a series of 3 videos that we produced where we ask locals to share some of their favorite things to do. I can circulate that also afterwards, but what that was meant to do is to start to tell the local stories of Nanaimo and share what locals find interesting about the city that they live in. And then I think my hope is in continuing with those kinds of marketing pieces at a marketing level is the opportunity to get people to also think about what they love about Nanaimo. So we did that at the Commercial Street Night Market last year as well. We were looking actually it was interesting, I was looking for locals and I found mostly visitors, but I was trying to get locals because I wanted to say, could I take your picture and could I ask you what your favorite thing to do in Nanaimo is? And then having them go, oh, okay, and then think about it. Oh, you know what? I really love to go down to Maffeo Sutton Park. My kids love that park, or we love crabbing off the dock. That was also part of that, trying to get at those local stories to generate that pride of place and sharing of that pride of place. The second part of that is an education piece that I think all of us around the table can help with in just sort of what is that value of tourism and the part that they play in that ambassadorship for their city. And then addressing the tough stuff that where people are feeling like this problem is overpassing what is actually a beautiful city, is just getting them to sort of look through that. We've talked about a passport program where we get people to actually go out and experience their city in a positive way. So they're, zip lining at Wild Play and going out to eat at some of our fabulous restaurants so that they then form a positive impression of the city instead of potentially the negative one that they may have had from something else that's happened in the past.
Thank you. If I may follow up, do you see council or the city playing a role? And beyond just using a hashtag online, is there something that we can focus on that you would say, yeah, that's really in the city domain and it would really help with some of these perceptions?
Well, I think we've talked about a bunch of issues that sort of have all of us involved in them. Beautification of the downtown core, some of the abandoned buildings, the opportunity to transform those. The Humanity and Art Urban Art Gallery has done great things to sort of bring back this kind of vibe within the city. Looking at opportunities for, entertainment in the downtown or any other opportunities that we can work together on breaking down those sort of bad areas that people are commenting on, and then celebrating more of the good stuff.
Thank you.
Councillor Armstrong?
I just wanted to tell you about a site, Raves Not Rants. I don't know if you're on that site.
Oh, yes, I've heard about that,
Yeah,
yes.
there's lots of good positive stuff on there about Nanaimo and about what you can do with 6 years old, 8 years old. So just a site for people to look at because it's nice to see positive stuff. Just want to throw that out there. Raves Not Rants. It's excellent site. I'm on all of them.
Thank you, Chair. If I may follow up on Councillor Brown's comments, I think we all have a role to be ambassadors for our city, and I know there's a lot of pride in our city around this table, and I think in our residents too. And sure, we've got some problems that we deal with, and most cities have those. But I think most people that live in Nanaimo, I would like to think, are very proud residents. So if we can encourage them to express that a little bit more easily, then that would be great. I wanted to ask if you would just expound for maybe people watching this meeting who haven't really heard of them or know much about the Nanaimo ambassadors.
Sure.
Because I think they play a really important role in greeting our visitors.
So that's actually a program that came out of a collaboration with several businesses within the city of Nanaimo. And it started out, what it is essentially is a volunteer program. So anybody who is a resident of Nanaimo can volunteer their time. There's a training component that they can access as well. So they're being trained on how to provide counseling to a visitor on what there is to do around the city. Both the training from the perspective of customer experience experience and customer service, but then training on the perspective of what there is to do and what they might suggest when a visitor comes to them and says, you know, where's the best place to eat or where can I have a picnic? So we have now, we have probably we don't know for sure, but one of the largest percentage of people within a city that is trained in that way through that program that is available provincially. So it has been hugely successful just in being able to expand how much visitor counseling we can offer. And it is a group of, as I said, over 90 volunteers now who are excited to give of their time to go and meet cruise ship passengers, to go to Blues and Jazz Fest and be able to talk to the people who are coming in from out of town and tell them what there is to do, and to share, again, their pride for the city that they live in. So, and recently in February with a conference that was on, as I mentioned, the provincial stage, that was where that program was highlighted, and my colleague Helga Lang was on a panel to talk about her success in that area.
Thank you. And if I may, then if citizens were interested in pursuing that program, would they contact Tourism Nanaimo or the Visitor Center or?
Yep, they could contact info@tourismnanaimo.com, and it would be Helga or one of our staff at the Visitor Center that would set it up.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any more discussion, questions? Mr. Harding?
Thank you. Just wanted to say, so this is twice a year. They'll come and speak to council. Trying to do it in the spring and then maybe late fall. And so if there's things that the council would like to add or emphasize more during the presentations, let us know. We can share that. They're on there twice a year. They'll come and speak to you.
Great, thank you. And I think Councillor Turley has personal experience with the Ambassador Program. Am I correct in that with the cruise ship visitors?
Big challenge in my memory now. Well, yeah, my wife and I volunteered, it was probably the last cruise ship it was in.
That's great.
And we were stationed at the entrance to the Theo Sutton. And so I was greeting people getting off the buses, and I was several things. Number one, I was apologizing for the tent city because it was still there then, and you're right, the comments were, yeah, well, it's nothing compared to what we got.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
And the other thing that was of interest, because I was actually born here and spent all but 10 years of my life here, I know a little bit about Newcastle, or whatever it's called now.
Say Sachin.
Yeah, I'll get used to it. The one thing, there was a gentleman from San Francisco, and he had been coming up here since the 80s, sometime in the 80s. And so I asked him, I said, did you know that the sandstone pillars from the Treasury building was poured here on and he didn't know that, so he's coming back next year.
Oh, great. Thank you. Thank you. See? The role of the resident. Thank you.
My apologies on that.
And I guess lastly, I'll just add, if anybody, my door is always open. Anthony's door is always open. If you want to come visit our office, feel free.
Thank you very much for your presentation and your work.
Thank you.
Both of
Report be received.
you. Seconded to receive the report. Councillor Bonner. All those in favor? Thank you. Okay, results of the E-Town Hall report by Ms. Murray.
Thank you, Chair. So there's a report included in your agenda today that provides results of the 2019-2023 Town Hall. And it's an overview of the marketing and communication activities that took place prior to the E-Town Hall, along with some post-event analytics. So on page 2 of your report, there's a E-Town Hall metrics table, and it's just to provide council some information and show the percentage was up from the last E-Town Hall, that Facebook impressions for the recent E-Town Hall were up by 332%, or by 8,696 impressions compared to the previous E-Town Hall. And also just with respect to the last presentation, some councillors here that are active on social media, I know not all of you are, but sharing some of our marketing posts that we do out and about in Nanaimo, the videos, liking them, sharing them, that's a good start to some of the local activities that we market and do posts for here at the City of Nanaimo. That's just a small step and something that would help a lot. Taking advantage of our over 13,000 Facebook followers, which is quite large. If some people follow you but not the City of Nanaimo, you're reaching those people, so that's just a suggestion. And any questions that you might have regarding this report, I will do my best. Ms. Faroki was going to be here today, but because of the time change, she was unable to make it, so I can do my best if you have any questions.
Okay, thank you very much. Ms. Curry, I have a question from Councillor Armstrong.
Just one question, I didn't see it on the report. I was asked, how many residents attended the town hall in person?
I believe it is on the metrics table. It might not be the attendance, but how many questions.
No, it was attendance.
Yeah,
It was
so-
requested. 30, okay, yeah. Was a request I had from someone here. Thank you.
That's something that we could mark down for next meeting.
Councillor Gessapot.
Through the chair, I just want to say I thought that it was really well organized in Town Hall, and I thought that, yeah, it's a really great initiative, and thanks to the staff that put that together. And also, too, I think that maybe to reflect on the marketing of it as just an e-town hall, like really it is a town hall that's open to people to come in and sit in the gallery, and I think that the people who did come got a lot out of it, and I think that, yeah, it made an impression. And so I think it is a expression of a more open style of governing. So somehow to say that, the gallery is open, it's just not for folks who are tapped in online.
Councillor Brown.
Yeah, I echo. I had a lot of fun, so I think it was a great event. One thing in the report, it mentions the potential for Facebook live stream.
Yes.
Is that something that's just in there for our consideration, or something staff are just going to explore?
No, so staff do have the capabilities now that we can do this. There's a magic box apparently that you need in order to do this, and it's magic. So we will be utilizing it at the next E-Town Hall to get the live Facebook streaming as well as the other live streaming. So we will be doing that, yeah.
Right on.
Thank you. Any further questions? Mr. Rudolph?
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to come back to the council with a future GPC here to talk about the subject of engagement and communications and that kind of thing. I'd like to do that in July if possible, just to have a touch base. And also bring forward some information around procedures and that kind of thing, which ties into the question period, delegations, all those types of things. So, and then ultimately, we might understand the nature of why we're doing these town hall meetings and when and how often, and how that gets scheduled in. So there's an opportunity to visit the package of this whole thing and the online versions of Bang the Table and these types of tools that are available in software to deal with engagement and the type of things. We do need to do a check-in with you and to bring back the recommendations of the task force on engagement and that type of thing. And now we have our new communications manager on staff, have her come in and have a workshop, I guess, in terms of where we're at and where you'd like us to go, so that maybe this becomes town or town hall in the spring, one in the fall with budget, or you can do them randomly, or how does this fit in with roundtables and all. There's a constellation of things there, so we just wanted to mention that we need to kind of look at this in the big picture and see where we're at and where you want to go. So for the July, we can schedule that to have that workshop with you.
Great, thank you. Any further discussion? I'll be looking for a motion to receive. Thank you, Councillor Brown, seconded by Councillor Thorpe. All those in favor? Strategic plan action timelines. Mr. Rudolph.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this is a follow-up to the last GPC meeting wherein you reviewed the more streamlined version of the action of the strategic plan and gave your general blessings to it, subject to 2 or 3 modifications which were built into that plan. In addition, we said we would report back to you with an action plan schedule. There's 2 versions of that here. It's more of a preference which one you like. One is embedded in the document and one ultimately becomes an attachment, which is some of the staff felt that this was more organic and might be able to be modified quickly without changing the strategic plan that often. If you notice, the one version is not that dissimilar to the RDN version, which has the action plans noted right in the document. So we're looking for your preference, feedback on that. We could also ask for your feedback on the timelines for any of those projects, and any other editorial or suggestions with respect to the package. All the senior management team is here to answer any specific questions about any of the action items. And with the goal today would be to have this to a place where we can bring it to one of the next council meetings for approval in a formal sense, either the one, well, I'm thinking probably July 8th, but I'm not sure, or the one next week if you're really keen to get going. So it just depends on your direction today.
Thank you. Councillor Armstrong.
For preferences, I prefer the last one where it's actually attached to the strategic plan. I think it's important to have timelines attached to your strategic plan. I don't think you have to change it because you can do updates. You can just do an update to your strategic plan saying this very date's met, this one's not. I think for people that have to search a second document, plus I don't like the second document, I found it hard to follow. I don't like the colors, then you gotta go down and check what's this, what's that. So, and all the ones I've researched, they all have completion timelines attached to their things because it's not saying what your update is, it just is what your timeline is. So I myself prefer the very last one, which was attached. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Gurry?
Would Councillor Armstrong like to make a motion to that, and then it could be discussed, and then if that's what you would like, then we have clear direction, if that would be okay.
I have a few people in the queue. Are they
Make the motion
timeline
first.
questions? Okay,
So
sorry.
I'll make the motion that we adopt the last one, which where the timeline is attached right to the strategic plan.
Second. Thank you. Any discussion? Councillor Brad.
I was going to say, but I'll say it again, I prefer the attachment option. I think it's just, I find it way easier to read. It's really the only page that matters to me in the whole plan, so I like it. It's a strategic plan on a single page, which is great, so I prefer that one. I assume that the gray boxes, although it says not started, means that it's going to be completed in that year. Is that?
Or ongoing.
Well, ongoing is,
That's what
what I
like
perceive
it.
as yellow, but it says orange.
Ms. Gurry, would you like to weigh in?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I just wanted to add to what Mr. Rudolph was saying, and then to maybe give some context from a staff perspective, because we were discussing both options as well. And we were discussing that with the attached version, the table, not embedded right into the plan, so the separated attachment, it could be updated with the business plans and the budget in the fall, and not bringing the whole plan back, like Mr. Rudolph was saying. So that was kind of the difference between the two.
Thank you for that clarification. Mayor Crowe?
I just asked a question, I was looking for an answer to it.
Yeah, so there's a question on the grade, so I don't talk.
Oh,
Yes, I think the gray is intentional work. It's not as part of the work plan this year, but it will be looked at when we get into this, as Gary said, business plan into 2020, 2021. The one that's gray all the way across is because of the wording of the initiative. It's not started because it's an if request.
So if it was a grade in 2019, once the next business planning sort of happens, you can imagine it would change and it might happen in 2020.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor Crowe?
Sorry, I'm looking for some clarification here because we're using different language. The recommendation says embedded, which I take to mean the version that includes the timeline in the context of the document, as opposed to the attachment, which is a separate sheet to be attached to it. So what are we talking about? Is the motion around embedding?
Yeah, we have embedding.
Thank you, just to be clear,
I was
because that's not
confused
the
as well.
language we used.
Yes.
Um,
I was confused as well, but that is what Councillor Armstrong wanted. The one where it's actually in the plan pages itself at the end. And then the attachment is the separate one.
That's just a clarifying question. Okay. Councillor Armstrong?
Just going back, I see the first attachment, which is the yellow, green, and gray, as a work plan update. I don't see that as a strategic plan update, it is an update, but it's an update as to where the work plan is. I think your strategic plan should always have a completion date attached to it, which I see the embedded one is, or the attempted completion date. And then the second one would be the work update that could come back to council, like is your work plan update. But I think for people, like it's hard enough to get them to go and then you want them to go hit on another document to look at. Then you gotta start showing just like what happened, what's green, what's yellow, what's blue, you know. So just my thoughts, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bonner.
Thank you, Chair. I'm kind of partial to the attachment as well. I do have a question regarding under governance excellence, undertake a review and update of council policies and bylaws, and it kind of looks like not going to happen because it's 2 grays and nothing else.
Yeah, that's,
Ms. Curry?
Thank you, Chair. So I can respond to that through you to Councillor Bonner. It will be in the business plan budgeting for 2020. So if council approves and is able to resource, or if legislative services is able to resource that, it will start in 2020. So that could be updated right now and maybe should be greens for 2020 and not gray.
Thank you. And my other question was in terms of accountability to taxpayers and our citizens is how are we going to be held accountable for things actually getting done in these timelines?
Madam Chair, through the councillor, what we think we need to do is build these into the business plans with specific timelines. We also have an annual report, which you'll see the current version will come back similar to previous years, but I think moving forward, we need to see some accountability in there in terms of what we said we do and where we're at. And some municipalities have been using this green, yellow, red as a check-in to see if it's on track or if it's behind schedule or something like that. So I think we could do a lot in terms of the accountability through the annual budgeting process, through business plans, as well as the annual report when we're doing the check-in to see how we've done. So that would be at this level, and I guess the other part is your evaluation of the CAO to see if it's getting done.
Councillor Martin.
Just follow up on that,
Sure.
not specific to that point is, it may make this more complicated, but if we could find a way to link the 2 documents together, like if this particular item is being dealt with in the business plan, then find a way to link that to the business plan so people be able to follow it through.
If I may, I like the way Councillor Armstrong described the attached version, because I think at our staff level, we will have a much more detailed version of that, the entire work program. And so that's a great way to describe it. It is very much, it's looking at it from a staff perspective in terms of a work program. So I think we can share that on an ongoing basis periodically with council as well. So again, it's just a matter of the check-ins. Do you do it annually or do you do it every 6 months or whatever? That's an interesting question. You know, an update on the strategic plan regularly, or is annually enough? Or is it just for each project?
I have Councillor Martin next, and then if anyone wants to weigh in on the question posed by Mr. Ruddle, please feel free. Councillor Martin.
Thank you. Through you, I think I heard earlier that Mr. Rudolph said that we could possibly do both, where we actually have the strategic plan with the timelines, but we also have this document as well. I know that in some of the feedback from people reviewing our strategic plan was the observation that timelines were not in the strategic plan itself, which they are now embedded. But could we use both documents?
The answer is yes. I think the idea would be to have a strategic plan that is the strategic plan, and then this is a document that can be used as an accompanying work plan document, which we can build on more regularly. So it's not a lot of work to do both, to be honest. But if we had one strategic plan, it would be just the colored version, not the one with the work plan.
Right.
Councillor Burke.
Thank you, Chair. So we do have a motion on the floor, which is to go with the embedded version. I think, I don't feel strongly either way, but I do like the idea of the one-page summary, frankly, and I'm just wondering if that couldn't be attached to the end of the embedded version. I don't know if that's what Councillor Martin was suggesting. And then everybody is happy.
Councillor Brown?
Absolutely.
or I think the alternative is that we just, for staff's purposes, they're going to have a more complex version. And when we visit this, we'll have a table that sort of shows us everything that's happening at once, you know. Like Councilor Thorpe, I don't really, whatever is most consumable by the public is ultimately what matters, because I think we need to be on top of it more so than they do, so.
So, Madam Chair, this is a summary, even this is a summary. So, for example, the official community plan work program will have its own Gantt chart, which will have process and there'll be details. And any major projects would have a timeline attached to it, which would form part of the review process for council. So, tying it all together, this is kind of a summary document, right? You'll see more detailed ones will be necessary for all the big projects. And then there's certain things that are just go ongoing, relationships with various entities, for example. This is a priority on an ongoing basis. Well, that doesn't show up necessarily as in this document that way.
Councillor Armstrong.
Just again, the only reason I go for the first one, it's the old KISS principle, right? Keep it simple. People can go right there, they can see it. It's what our goal is. And then the updates we can provide, like whether we decide to do a quarterly, whatever, it's like anything you do, you look at, here's what our goal is. It doesn't mean we're going to get to it, and that's when you provide updates. So that's why I like it attached there. You don't have to go searching and what's yellow, what's green, as I've said before. I just think it's much cleaner, much easier for the people to look at, and then we can say, for a link to the update, go here.
Thank you. Then, no further questions. I'd like to vote on the motion, which is that we not adopt the strategic plan, but we embed the timelines in the draft strategic plan.
Yes.
So all those in favor? Opposed? Councillor Brown is opposed. Now, do we need to move to have also a second document, if that's the will of council, to have a companion document?
Yes, thank you, Chair. You could just have a motion that the appendix is included at the end of the strategic plan as well.
Councillor Armstrong?
I just want to change that. I would like it so that council receives an update bi-yearly on the strategic plan, which could be in this format. Because I think we do need to be updated, and I think we need a timeline on when we get updated, and I would use, if that's what staff would, I would actually like to see what staff would like to do further updates, because it may just be like, here's this project, here's the update.
Okay, I just need, Ms. Gurry indicated that a motion could be made. I'm hearing a lot of interest in having it, obviously we voted to have it embedded, but there's also a lot of interest to have a companion document. So is anyone interested in making that motion? Councillor Turley? Second. Councillor Martman? Any discussion on that? Councillor Brown?
Just so I'm clear, we're going to have the strategic plan with the embedded documents, and then we're going to have an attachment document.
Yeah.
Which, again, I'm not in favor of that. This is messy.
It's the same thing, it's messy.
Councillor Armstrong?
I think what we're looking for, from what I'm hearing from the table, is updates to where we're at. And that can be done separately. Like, I don't think we should even be having that discussion right now until we have a chance to talk about how we want to get our updates and maybe hear from staff how they want to get the updates. Because I think that's what people were looking at this as an update, saying, oh, it's going to be done then, where now it's green, now it's yellow. That's an update. In your strategic plan, a timeline is what you want. It's not your actual thing that's happening. That's your work plan, is your actual thing. So maybe we could say, look at, like, we want work plan updates by yearly or something. Like, I think that should be another discussion for the next GPC, and maybe have a report back from staff as how do they want to give it to us. Like, is this the format they want to use, or do they want to say stage 1 is on time for this, stage 2, whatever. That's my preference. I don't think we should be, I'm with Tyler, I think that just muddies the water, because it says, well, it doesn't even say the same thing really, it's different because it keeps changing.
Okay, Ms. Gurry?
Thank you, Chair. Just a little bit further clarification. My understanding was that the appendix with the gray, green, orange, we would have better details once we did our budget and business plans for our departments in the fall, so we could update it with more accurate timelines. And from a staff perspective, I think I'm speaking for us, but I just know that is when we would have more details, and so that is when I think we would be able to update it and provide council with some more clear timelines. I think that's the discussion. Mr. Rudolph can jump in and correct me if I'm wrong.
So I think the intent of the motion was to do it by twice a year.
No, I didn't make the motion, I just threw it out for discussion.
For the
To do the
appendix
appendix.
to be added.
Which just.
So as I mentioned to Chair, that we need to have a system where we have business plans, an annual report that reports back on the progress of the strategic plan and the projects in
business plans, which are supposed to demonstrate alignment with the strategic plan as well as in-house work plans that need to update this, that, and the other. So there are going to be check-ins, so as a minimum of a year. And maybe that gets something that gets aligned with the town hall meetings or that type of thing. As a minimum of a year. And there is an annual report that's being produced for in association with the financials year end, but the annual report could be more than the financials, and a nice companion piece of work that's going to go in front of it, but we can tie that in very much with our strategic plan and our goals. So we're demonstrating the link between how much we're spending and making and what we're doing, which is really the important piece. I was talking about how much it costs, but we're not talking about our services and the successes of the delivery of everything. I think that's important. So there needs to be we'd like to come back to you with a little bit of a chronology of how that could work. That maybe fit into either the workshop on communications or maybe even flavor a little bit of that in our discussion this year's financial and business planning guidelines coming to the Finance and Audit Committee, which is it's really murky right now, but it'll all get clear.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Turley.
Yeah, just to clarify things, I think we're making the assumption that the public would like to see it in one way, and the reason I put the motion forward is because some people read something in one way and other people read something in a different way, and by giving them the two options, usually they best understand what the timeline is, and my mind makes sense. I don't see why we're assuming that it's going to be the first way that everybody's going to be happy with.
Thank you. Ms. Gray.
And just to add to Councillor Turley's point, Chair, is that it will just be attached to the strat plan. So it'll be your pages of your strategic plan and then that Excel list at the end of it. So they don't need to go in two different places. It's just an appendix to the strategic plan.
Thank you. Before the question, I'm going to weigh in and say that I, like Tyler, saw this as a one-page strategic planning document that some people, Councillor Turley, you pointed out, that might be all they're interested in. They might not be interested in everything else. So I think it's just another way of saying we're doing what we're doing and how to check in. So the motion on the floor is to, Ms. Gray, could you remind us, please?
It is to include the appendix as well as the embedded version of the strategic plan. So include the appendix to the strategic plan.
Okay. All those in favor? Opposed? Councillor Brown, opposed. Okay, now we're... Now, the recommendation of council, or pardon me, of staff is to, that we approve the strategic plan.
Move motion.
Thank you, Councillor Armstrong.
Second.
Okay, discussion, Mayor Crog.
Well, I wanted to jump in before we got to a motion, but just a couple of things that jumped out at me as I mentioned to you folks earlier. On the page where it talks about Nanaimo with this lovely outline of the city, it just really doesn't do a thing for me. It makes no sense at all. I believe one wise councillor said, I think of the province of British Columbia perhaps, and I'm not sure what the value of it is on that particular photo page. I've taken it out entirely or something different. The other thing is, and this is by way of motion, under environmental responsibility, we have the actions. The last action is if requested, the City of Nanaimo with the Regional District of Nanaimo, the committee oriented to develop food security for the region. I don't know that's the kind of language I would want to have in our strategic plan if requested. It just strikes me as clumsy and indicates we don't care unless somebody else actually asks us. So either we take it out, fix it, or whatever, but apparently we did vote on it, so that one slipped by me, and I apologize, but so be it. I raise those as issues that I think need some consideration.
If that's a motion to adopt with those amendments proposed, I would second that.
Ms. Gurry.
Thank you, Chair. So there is a motion on the table. So what you could do is amend it to include these amendments. So you would have an amendment right now, a formal amendment, to make that last bullet point on the environmental responsibility page say, work with the Regional District of Nanaimo and other community organizations to develop food security for the region. You could change it to an action item.
It could be just the city of Clover, and just remove if requested.
Yeah, remove if requested.
Or want the line in there.
Yes, so just if requested, the city of Nanaimo, just take that out. So,
I'll amend the motion to include that.
so you guys, you could make that motion and then have it seconded and vote on that, and then you could adopt the original motion as amended. So if Councillor Armstrong is going to move that, could she have a seconder?
Councilman Waterman, I believe is the seconder.
Yeah, I agree.
Thank you.
And then we would now discuss and then vote on the amendment first.
Okay, any discussion on the amendment?
Did that amendment include the graphic?
No, because that wasn't made in formal motion.
This is removing if requested.
Okay, so all those in favor of adopting the draft strategic plan with that amendment under environmental responsibility?
We're voting on the amendment first.
Vote on
We
the
have to vote on the
amendment.
amendment first.
Thank you. Can you tell me what we're voting on?
Yeah, so Chair, of course you're going to be the one that gets stuck with this first official amendment. So it is just on the amendment you're voting on right now, which is to change the wording of that last bullet.
Okay, all those in favor of changing that wording? Thank you. Any opposed? No?
And now you'll vote on the main motion, which is to adopt the strategic plan as with the following amendment, which is to take out if requested on that last bullet. So you're voting on both now together.
Okay, thank you. And that gets us back to discussion. Okay,
Yes.
so all those in favor of adopting the
Yes,
draft
as
strategic plan
amended.
as formally amended?
I have a question first.
Questions first.
Following up on Mayor Krog, which photo was it that you were saying? Or the,
Page 41.
oh, the map.
Looks like a T-Rex.
That's
Oh.
Just like the one you had last week.
Oh, okay. So because if we vote
It's
to
not.
adopt, it's okay, it's not part of the strategic plan? No, we can
Pictures without.
okay.
You could have a motion to remove that page from the
after
document.
we're done this. Just, Chair, if you want to have a formal motion, we had some discussions and we were just going to remove it because the picture is wonderful without the sketch of the Nanaimo. And just to be clear, it's the Nanaimo city limits.
Right.
That is what the outline is, but that isn't part of your plan, it's just graphics, so we could do it without a motion.
Okay, so we don't need a motion to remove the image, and we are currently discussing anything in the draft strategic plan that we would like to amend.
Yeah.
So are there any questions, discussion items?
Call.
Okay, call the question. All those in favor of adopting the draft strategic plan? Opposed? Okay, carries unanimously.
So that forms a recommendation to council.
Yes.
We
Yes,
recommend
right,
that council
yeah.
adopt, so it's just the way it's, so it would be forwarded to the next available council meeting.
Okay. Good questions. Okay, I'd be looking for a motion for adjournment.
Question period.
We've just checked, there's no.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
In favor? Thank you.
I just want to thank Mr. Sims for all the work your garbage guys have been doing. There's one really good post in my neighborhood thing that says, isn't it sad that this is all we have to complain about, that our garbage is a day late, so. You guys have been
Wonderful that that's what we have.
Yeah, that's exactly what he said, and I think I want to also thank staff for adding the fact on the app why it was late, because that made a big difference for people, so thank you for everybody told that.